Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I am absolutely delighted to be talking with my guest today. And yeah, I know I say that almost every time, but this young man is absolutely incredible. And I'm not saying that just because he had me on his podcast, but he truly is someone who has a wonderful story, a fabulous business work ethic, and more importantly, can teach us a whole heck of a lot about podcasting and starting a business and things like that. So please join me in welcoming Sergey Leshchenko to our program today. Welcome, Sergey. How are you?
Thank you, Deb, for inviting me. I'm really good. Had my lunch, ready to talk about business, podcast, everything in between. So let's give it a roll.
Perfect. I love it. Well, you mentioned lunch. I just had breakfast. We are 6 hours apart because Sergey is in Kyiv, Ukraine. And we're going to talk about doing business in a place like that. So let me tell folks just a little bit about you, and then we will jump into this. So Sergey Leshchenko is the founder of Beverly Productions, a podcast production agency. He is also the host of Be Yourself, where he explores transformational changes in life and business. Over the past year, he's built a thriving business despite the challenges of being in a war in Ukraine, proving that resilience and creativity can flourish even in the toughest of times. Oh my gosh, Sergey, welcome to our program.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid intro. Thank you very much for introducing me this way. It pretty much covers it all.
It does. And it's so funny because you're a podcaster, and I mean, like, I've had people send me 2 sentences or 3 pages, right? And so I love it, but tell us a little bit more about yourself. And we'll really discuss what it's like to be doing business in Ukraine. But tell us more about how it is that you decided that now, anytime, you decided to start this business.
Well, I've been a serial entrepreneur, and this is something that I have not said a lot of times in my life. This is a pretty bold statement, and I stand by my words. I'm a serial entrepreneur because I've tried up to 10 times in my life, and one venture in my late 20s worked. It was an e-commerce business with my partner. We produced some content for tier 1 countries, USA, Canada, Australia, Great Britain. And this is where my knowledge of English came in handy. That's where I learned how to formulate sentences in correct way, because when you're working with content, even though I didn't write the stuff, but you are in this area before the AI or anything, you're in the space where the written word or spoken word really makes a difference. And that's where I learned how to communicate and how to do intercultural business. And that was my successful first try of running a business. The company was sold for over $1 million.
Wow.
To a Ukrainian venture firm. I wasn't working in the company when it was sold. I left the company earlier. And I think that I want to say I left it on my own, but truly speaking, I was sort of asked to leave by my investors and by my co-founder. Yeah, you know, I took some offense to it, but now I'm totally fine with their
Right.
decision, and
Because it
even more
opened up
so,
great new opportunities.
it opened up. He really, my co-founder, helped me understand what I didn't understand at the time. That being this COO, that was my official position, Chief Operations Officer. I was in charge of product, of writers. It was not something that I really enjoyed. And he saw it on a daily basis.
Okay.
But because I had an emotional attachment to the thing that I started, I just couldn't leave myself.
Right. It was your baby.
It was my baby, yeah. And it was a traumatic experience that led to me at 29 years old, not ever having a real, a significant amount of money. It led to me learning what it means to, have some money on my pocket, and how and how you can spend it. Unfortunately or fortunately, I spent it in the most entertaining way. Just
Well, you
blew it
were in
all
your
away.
20s.
Yeah, blew it all away because I was dreaming of this opportunity my entire life, and I wasn't raised by uh, affluent parents, so just a regular
Right.
and middle income family. And yeah, I reached this finally I reached this monetary goal, and I thought that buying a car, going to some fancy exotic locations in the world, having fun in every imaginable way will feed my soul. but
Okay.
but maybe I didn't understand that what I needed is the food for my soul. I was just having fun, and in just spending this life, and wasting time. Basically, got to the point where I realized that money cannot buy happiness. This is the realization that came in the middle of me spending all this money that I was able to get from the business after selling my stocks. And from that point forward, I think I was 31 years old. I realized that I needed to find something else in my life. And I started looking intensively for something that would not only put food on my table, but also really heal my soul and uh, fulfill me. We
Right.
talked about fulfillment, and I really like Simon Sinek's uh, distinction between happiness and fulfillment. He says that um, happiness is a fleeting state. You can be happy in the moment. Right now, you just won a basketball game, or hit a
Right.
final shot,
Yeah.
or you had a great meal, and you're happy. But it's fleeting.
Right.
It's something that you're always catching it.
And
How about
chasing it.
fulfillment? Yes, and fulfillment. Uh, so it's a temporary state,
Right.
temporary emotional state. While fulfillment, on the other hand, is a state where you might not enjoy something that you do in the moment, but because you have a purpose, because you're not misplaced, because you're doing something that you truly love, you feel fulfilled, you feel like you do something that matters. And this is something that I didn't have in my life.
Okay.
And from 31 to 34, I was on the mission, Deb, to find this something. I tried a couple more times. I tried the business, doing online English school with Chinese kids. Went to China. That didn't work. Yeah. I also tried doing some business English school in Ukraine. Also didn't speak to me. And they say do business with using something that you really know well. Well, I know English really well, and it's always been on the surface to start doing something real connected to this. But running an English school really didn't work for me. Didn't make it for me. And finally, in 2024, a year ago, I started my own podcast because I really share love for connecting with people from around the world. I don't know what it is about me. I've never been to any English-speaking country, Deb, in my life. But I am so excited about being able to talk to people, especially from America, from North America. I don't know what it is. Maybe because of the influence of NBA basketball. I watched a lot of NBA basketball, and partly this is, and NBA commentators are partly responsible for my fluency in
Right.
English.
Yes, your
Because,
English
I
is
just
very good.
watched how they comment at the beginning. Thank you, Deb. Thank you. So basically, I realized that I want to talk to people, and I started a podcast. And then, out of the blue, sorry for such a prolonged monologue.
Oh, no, this is great.
So out of the blue, some lady sends me a message asking me, so you do podcast production? And I'm like, no. But since she asked that, I realized that people also might need some production services. And since we did it so well for ourselves, I realized, why don't we expand it and offer it as a service? So this is like a short story of how I started this video production company. So we're specializing in video for the most part. And creating promotional clips and publishing stuff on YouTube, so it has good ratings and search engine optimization. But all in all, just me always trying to find something that doesn't feel like work. And finally, thank goodness, it didn't take a few more years or a dozen of years. Thank goodness I found something that I can do, and I don't feel like I work, even though I work a lot.
Right. And that's absolutely fantastic. And, one of the things that a lot of people say when they're entrepreneurs is they've got their passion and they've got that thing that they love doing. And then there's all that other stuff, the bookkeeping, the hiring, the firing, the all of those things. And so that's where, obviously, as soon as somebody possibly can, they outsource it, right? Because we want to continue doing what we love. But the problem is when we get caught up in doing all of that other stuff and we're not able to do what our passion is. So do you work with other people, or are you still kind of the one-man show right now?
No, I do have a team, and I think you hit the nail on the head, because you as an entrepreneur need to surround yourself, especially if you're this free spirit like myself. You want to surround yourself with people who can do the tedious work,
right?
And I cannot say that I didn't have trust issues. In the beginning, because this thing was so dear to my heart.
Right. Again, it's your baby.
And I started even doing some editing myself. But again, I early realized that there are people who do video editing much better, and I can actually prosper just leading these people. I've been studying leadership for my entire life, from sports, basketball, team sports, to a running company with my investors, and I know that I have a way with people. And I realized that why don't I give them a chance to shine in their respective areas. Top shelf editor, my best editor, and he came to me as a result of actually following my stuff on social media. So this is an interesting lesson. If you want to find real superstars to be a part of your team, just do content marketing. Publish stuff on social media, on your blog, and you never know who follows you. And I actually just posted who was following me actually reached out, and he became this superstar that is now like one of the project managers and top video editors, who sets the standards for the entire team, for all the editors that come on board later. So it's an inspiring story, because he himself, he's not like a youngster. He's 33 now, but he changed his career. He was like in a restaurant business, but since
so that's a major change, right?
And and he was in the top management. But once the war started, and I only hire Ukrainians, because I feel like it's my,
it's a way to give back,
sort of way to give back, and it's my obligation in it, even to provide Ukrainians with work. I have requests from Indians, Africans who want to be on my team. Sorry, guys. Ukrainians are my best possible working people, and I feel that the more I hire, the more I contribute into the overall success in our current state of things in Ukraine.
Right. So we're having just a little bit of audio issues, but folks, I'm going to remind you that we are 5,400 miles apart. So technology just doesn't always cooperate, but just some tiny little issues. So it's interesting. You're actually my second Ukrainian guest, and he said the exact same thing. He hires other people from the Ukraine, and particularly in Kyiv, because it is his way to help his country to continue. And I just love that concept. So yeah, he was very much, he said, yeah, that is what he does, is he hires the people that are local in order to support his country. But let's talk about that a little bit more. Yeah. You started a company when your country is at war. And in particular, I mean, Kyiv is a main target. How is it that you decided to do that?
Well, once again, I never had any doubts in my mind that sooner or later I would find a product market fit. So all my services or products that I ever released were always chasing this main goal of product market fit. Product market fit is perfect time, perfect circumstances for you to offer this specific service to specific people, right, to solve their problem. And I was able to fill this gap. Right now I work with for the most part, business podcasts. If to narrow it down, I work with professionals from TA space, from HR industry. So my biggest customers are biggest podcasts in HR and TA industries in the US. And how I decided, I don't know how I could go any other way than looking for a business that would work. So I never had any doubts that I will find it. And even though, in the beginning it was tough, and a lot of people were suggesting, why don't you just go get some sales job?
Because you go get a real job.
Yeah, go, my mom or like everybody. It's the pressures that might be unbearable, I believe, for people who are not used to it. But for me, I never. I did work for someone for a real short time, but for my entire life, I was an entrepreneur, and even if I didn't have money, I was still filled up with the enthusiasm that and this romantic attitude towards life that someday this will happen or that would work. So for me, I've just loved trying, and this thing worked once. I found this first. So maybe it's worth telling that this business is the fruit of me being able to connect to one human being named Chad Soash. Hi, Chad. If you're listening to this podcast, shout out to you, my man. This guy gave me a chance.
Right.
So he was on not even on a podcast, on live stream on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
With horrible quality, but we clicked. We connected in a big way, and I said that I'm starting this new agency, and I think since in about 6 or 7 months, he came back and placed his first order, which was pretty good, pretty big, and that sparked the inception of the business. So yeah, I mean, for a lot of folks who are listening and who want to start a B2B business, this is what I'm doing, is a B2B business, providing some service. Find your first customer, especially if you have a pretty big average sale, right? The check. So for me, the first customer was a ticket to this new whole entire market. And to be frank, Deb, all my succeeding customers came as a result of networking.
Right, because you can actually have customers around the world. I mean, that's the cool thing about it.
Yeah. And I just went ahead and started being more active on LinkedIn. We can talk more about how LinkedIn can propel a service-based business. But yeah, for me, it was a game changer. Just building connections. And they say that B2B is all about personal connections, and I can testify to this.
Yeah, it's funny because it's business to business, but it's really not. It's still person to person.
Person to person.
Yeah, because a company is an entity. It doesn't do business. It's the people soulless.
In it. There are people, decision makers. All you gotta do is, honestly, you just have to find decision makers, and you connect with them.
Right. Yeah. So I'm curious, how did you initially connect with Chad? How did you find him?
Oh, okay. You're digging deep. I see what you're doing here, Deb.
Well, see, I learned from you from being on your podcast.
Thank you. Returning the favor. Well, there was time in my life when I felt that my voice wasn't loud enough.
Okay.
I mean, that I achieved so much, but since I wasn't public and my company wasn't public, the first company, I didn't get enough flowers.
Okay.
So I had this hole in me that desperately desired recognition. And I think nothing shameful about this.
No, we're all like that.
Yeah, we're wired this way, and I'm pretty goal-oriented and ambitious. And since I just achieved this, and I saw that no one knew who I was, and my entire network, I cut ties with my entire network of the first business, because there was some bad blood between me and my co-founder.
Okay,
really.
Well, and it was kind of like, let's just be done, right?
Yeah, and I had bad feelings, and I actually said to myself that I know that this network, this corporation, it's a huge corporation in Ukraine that actually runs some $1 million companies, even in the US. Better Me is one of the services. That is providing you like motivation for health and stuff like that. It's Ukrainian company that's just number one in App Store in the US. But I realized I wanted to prove to myself that I can do it on my own, that I don't need them to help me, because I did feel a little bit betrayed, to be completely frank with you. And I started trying to get on podcasts. Podcasts.
Okay, so as a guest.
Yeah. So that's I'm starting to answer your question about how did I get to know Chad. There was for a short amount of time, there was a website called Polywork.
they wanted to be a LinkedIn killer.
Okay.
It didn't work. They pivoted, but for the short while, they accepted a lot of people who posted opportunities. As one of the opportunities was podcast guests, and I actually used my story to my advantage to apply to a number of podcasts like crazy. Yeah, and I wanted to finally get on someone's show, just like we're pitching ourselves, pitching our business.
Right.
Life is all about pitching ourselves. And I got one yes, only one single yes from a lady, Tatiana. She's a Ukrainian, but she's been living in all around the world actually, and she's got Ukrainian roots, and she wanted to talk to me as a Ukrainian. So this is where my Ukrainian passport.
It was yes, a definite benefit.
Benefit, yeah. And we connected, and we really hit it off. And since then, she started introducing me to people who I asked her. I asked her to introduce her. So I would watch who's on her podcast, and I would reach out and say, "Hey, this Chad guy, I really," because he was a military. He was in military for like 15 years or something. And I was at the time I was very fascinated by how military is different from the corporate world in the US, and how in military people unite and they bond and they will do everything to protect their brother, whilst in corporate America it's all about individual gain.
Back to that betrayal word.
And no one gives a fuck. They all pay lip service, and stuff like that. So I felt that I wanted to connect, and she introduced me to him, and the rest is history.
Wow, I love it. And I love that how you use this networking, because I get a lot of people who say, "Can you introduce me to someone you think would be beneficial?" And that's as far as they go with it. Well, my brain can't come up with, every once in a while I'll think, okay, this person should meet this person. But the fact that you said, I want an introduction to these specific people, that made it very easy, right? Because they could just turn around, they could fire off an email and it's done. I had several weeks ago, I interviewed, he's 15 years old, and he lives in Pakistan. And he said, this kid's going to rule the world. And he said, could I give him 10 introductions to people who he could interview on his podcast?
Well done. Very well done.
And I immediately came up with 5. And then I was stuck, right? And it's almost like there's too many people. Because it was like, I just couldn't narrow it down. Now I did, eventually send him 10, but if he had gone through either past podcast guests like you did, or LinkedIn or something like that, and said, hey, these people sound very interesting, would you do an introduction? That would have made it so much easier. So I love that you did that. And obviously it worked out very, very well.
For everyone who's listening to this, if you take a proactive approach in life, what does it mean? It means that you don't know how things gonna work out, but you take responsibility, right? And I'm not casting any shadow on this Pakistani guy. He's still learning how to live.
He's 15. He's 15.
Yeah, he's 15. But he put the pressure on you. So it's always, it's like my investors. I don't want to cite my investors too many times, but what I remember from their lessons is never criticize without a suggestion, right? If you criticize, and never even come or knock on someone's door without an offer. So if you have a problem, do have a proposition, do have a suggestion, because when you propose something, the possible solution, when you made your research, right, and you have this idea on how to solve the problem, this actually ignites person's desire to also do their research and work it along with you. So just saying, hey, Deb, so people really just say, hey, who are the ones who I can benefit from? Random guys, come on, you can do the better than this.
Right. Yeah. Because like I said, I have so many connections. It was hard for me to think of who would be good for him. And yeah, if he's actually did connect with him. I mean, this kid is incredible. I mean, he, when I did the introductions, he immediately responded, or, I mean, it's about the same time difference. Where you and I are 6 hours apart, and I think Pakistan is about the same time difference, maybe 7 hours. But so depending on the time of day, he responded very promptly with a thank you to me, and then a short paragraph to that person saying, here's what he was looking for. And several of them have already been on his podcast. He has made connections with people. He's already on 15. He's already decided he wants to do a different thing. And so he's transitioning into that, which that's great. Right. But yeah, it is how we function as a business is all about networking. If we don't know people, people can't buy from us. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Easy as ABC, especially for B2B.
Right.
Yeah, my first business was B2C, and now I know that if I knew that the B2B suited me so much better, would be a different story. But I don't want to change a single bit of my story.
Right, because you learned from it.
It's supposed to be that way. And there is a phrase by one poet in Ukraine. He said that everything happened accidentally as it was planned.
I love that.
Everything happens accidentally as planned. You see? So oxymoron in a way. But I like it. I like it this way. I like it this way.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that holds people back is that fear of failure. And even if it's just you send an email and you say, hey, could you introduce me to this person? I mean, at the very least, they're going to ignore you. They might tell you no, or they're going to respond. And then, you go from there. And so there's really just 3 options. And none of those are anything that's horrible or tragic or wonderful, right? If they don't respond or they tell you no, okay, you go on to the next person. And if they say yes, well, that's a great opportunity. But I think the fear of no is what holds so many people back.
Yeah, that's a good observation, and I think that it's driven by, or not even driven, it's caused by this constant comparison to others. And with the social media, it's like a nuclear bomb for this. People constantly compare themselves with others, and they see that other people succeed, and they cannot stand a failure. Maybe they think that all those folks did it from the first try, but no. I recently watched Robert Greene. He's an amazing person and author of 48 Laws of Power, one of the most downloaded book nowadays. Even though the book is like 10 years old, but it's
the same principles.
It's gotten popularity now, especially. And he spent a lot of time with 50 Cent, a rapper.
Okay.
And he says that everyone sees the glamour, the fancy life associated with being a successful, popular hip hop performer, but no one actually saw how much he worked and how much he works behind the curtain.
Right.
He almost died once. 50 Cent was shot, and all the labels dropped him, turned blind eye to him, and he has had to restart his entire career, and he made it back. And to be completely frank, these stories, and that's one of the reasons why I invited you on the show, these stories of people who come back, who find the willpower to not go with the flow, or just let it be, who actually fight back, who stand up. It inspires me so much. And I want you guys to understand that failure is a part of the game.
Right.
Michael Jordan said, without losing, there is no winning. You have to lose to win.
Right.
You won't appreciate winning so much. Therefore, be prepared to fail.
Right.
And if someone doesn't respond to you, that's totally fine.
Right. Well, and don't read into it anything more. I mean, that's then we start telling ourselves stories, right?
They don't like us.
Yes.
I'm not on this level.
Maybe they just didn't see the email. Or they forgot. I had yesterday I finally remembered, because I kept sending myself reminders, right? Remember to do this. Somebody had emailed me with something over a week ago. Now, of course, they said, hey, there's no rush to do this. So that immediately put it, out of my mind. But yeah, it was just it was not a snub to them. It wasn't that I didn't want to do it, is that I just kept forgetting. I mean, just as simple as that. And, I think we all need to give ourselves the grace and give everyone else the grace that things happen. It's, like when you and I were, and I want to talk about your podcast, but when you and I were setting up me being a guest on your podcast, we had to reschedule at least once, maybe even twice, because you didn't have power, just kind of that little simple thing like that. Yeah. And, you never know. I had a guest who I interviewed and her podcast, by the time we record this, will have gone live. She and her husband were scheduled to be on our podcast back in January. Now this is weird. This is gonna get you. I launch Zoom and they don't show up. Well, that happens. I mean, okay. There are, and it wasn't, and so I, sent an email. And actually I was dealing with, they had someone, a booker who I was dealing with. And so I sent the email and I said, must have got our signals crossed. Here's the link to reschedule. So I wasn't going to, certainly not anything negative. He passed away that day. I mean, it was like, and oh my gosh. And then and they said, she still wants to do the interview. And I said, okay, let's put it off for a couple months. This is not anything she needs to be worrying about. And so you never know why somebody doesn't respond. Now, obviously that's the worst case scenario, but most of the time it's that we're busy people. We're not snubbing anybody. It's not that we don't want to help. It's that our little brains can only hold so much that we have to do.
Yeah, when our brain is wired towards negativity. So I think this method used by Tony Robbins that he promotes actively is called priming. He says that either you prime your brain for positivity, or the news outlets, other people will prime your brain for you. Right. So either you choose what to focus on, or someone will choose it for you.
Right.
And there is this exercise where, by meditating, you pretty much thinking of people who you're grateful for, and you're thinking about the things that you want to achieve. And actually, I've been doing this. Everyone who's listening, you can find it on YouTube. It's called Priming, Tony Robbins. You basically think about things. These last 3 days, I've been thinking about things that I want to achieve, and surprisingly, I feel like I'm getting closer to them, even though I've been doing them only for 3 days. So there's something about the power of visualization, right, and telling yourself that it's not out of the realm of a possibility. It's in the striking distance. You just need to go there.
Right. And if we're thinking the worst or bad things are going to happen, they do. If you think I'm not going to get that big client contract, well, somehow something, maybe you don't respond in a timely manner to an email. Yeah. Maybe you give them bad information because you've already in your brain lost that client.
Yeah.
And, so, bad things do happen. You live in a country that's at war. Bad things happen. But it's a matter of, okay, that's there. You can't really change it. And so what are the choices that we make for ourselves to do things better? Like, I don't really watch the news here. I know what's going on. I don't need to watch the news in great detail. I don't need to respond on Facebook to all of the posts where I'm thinking, what the heck? I don't even have to read them.
True.
I'm actually only on LinkedIn and Facebook. I don't do the other socials, partially because I am the kid with bright shiny objects. If I would go on TikTok, I'd just watch cat videos the rest of the day and never get anything done. So I have to make my brain focus by eliminating those distractions. But if you think bad things are going to happen, bad things will happen. If you think good things are going to happen, then good things will happen. To talk about your podcast, which is Be Yourself. One of the things that we talked about was, my doctors had said that I was going to die within hours. And I very distinctly remember thinking, excuse me, I get to vote. And obviously I did not die. Well, I might be, I'm a ghost. But yeah, it was, but if I had,
you're very much alive.
Yes.
Believe me, you're more alive.
Oh, yeah.
You're more alive than 70% of population of the world.
But if I had paid attention to them and believed what they were saying, I wouldn't be here, because I would have stopped fighting. And whether it's big or small, all of it is a choice. And I've been talking a lot about that, either as being a guest on people's podcasts or with my guests. It's a choice. It is totally a choice, folks.
Yeah. Agreed.
So talk to us a bit more about your podcast. And first of all, I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes. I truly was very honored to be a guest on it. And I rewatched it again right before we started this program. And that sounds very weird, right? That we're watching our own podcast. But what I watched was, I know, and now I don't get too carried away with it, because then we start the self-critique, right? And so I watch it and I go, oh, that was cute. I typically don't watch the entire thing. The intro that you did for me on your podcast brought me to tears. I mean, it really was, but I loved how you did it. Because it wasn't just, let's sit here in front of the microphone. You were outside and you were on these great, stairs and I'm assuming in Kyiv. And, and it was just this wonderful intro, and it made me think, oh, I need to do better with mine. But tell us how you decided to start Be Yourself, and tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, I think it was a pure desire to just expand my network, and talk to more people. I have a gift, don't get me wrong. I have a linguistical gift. And there is a book, I don't remember specifically the title, but it speaks about different types of intelligence, because people get used to thinking like an analytical intelligence only, but there is actually emotional intelligence, bodial intelligence, there is artistical intelligence in a way. So, and mine is linguistical intelligence. And I know that I can talk. And when podcasts arrived onto the scene, I didn't actually give a lot of credit to this format, because I was thinking, well, so no video, right? So
just people talking. Are just gonna listen.
Yeah, they're gonna listen, and then I quickly realized that you can just wash your dishes or stay in the traffic jam, and slowly my country started catching up to the West, and and the podcast became this one of the primary formats. And I think specifically when I saw video podcasts, when Joe Rogan started posting on YouTube, and there's a guy from the UK named Stephen Bartlett. He's got an amazing podcast called The Diary of CEO. Their most growing podcast on YouTube. They got 6 million subscribers now. And I realized that there could be a fit there. I like videos. I like talking. Why don't I go into video podcasting? So and it just clicked for me right away. Connecting with other people, practicing my English, just getting to know like a global perspective on things. And yeah, that was the inception of it.
I love it. And it really was fun to be on your podcast as a guest. And part of it is, because you are so knowledgeable, you've done your research, and I am a guest on people's podcasts 1 or 2 times a week. Plus, obviously I've got my own, and yours was one of the better ones in a variety of ways. And I'm not just saying that because you're here and I'm talking to you. It really was, you were very professional with how you approached it. But I think the cool thing is like you said, podcasts, whether it's video, whether it's audio, however people are consuming it, it's everywhere. I mean, I have people who tell me that they listen to Business Power Hour as they work out. And because they work out for about an hour. And so they put it on and they listen. And or they're walking or they're doing what obviously people spend a lot of time. I'm in Atlanta. They spend a lot of time commuting, so they're in their cars, but it really is a great way for people to get their messages out there, which is then again why it's a great thing for you to have launched your company to help people do that.
Thank you. I think I'm blessed to live in this era and be able to do something that I love. And now it's benefiting my business.
Okay, so tell us more about that.
To put it like into business, on the business rails, basically I never want to sell anything to anyone. And I never pick my guests on the basis of whether or not they could possibly buy my services. But since we do produce podcasts, right? When people see the way our video are produced, they take notice, right? And they either maybe return them to me themselves, or they refer a friend. That's the vehicle and the great lead generation vessel for me right now. But the secret here: never look to sell. Right. Don't approach a conversation with transactional need, right? Just be yourself.
Well, and like we said, build those relationships.
Yeah, build those relationships and follow a comment. I think that's just a common sense. Well, if you like someone, and this is one of the things that you taught me. You said that you only work with people who you want to work, who you like being friend with, right? So, and I took like great advice. I think that's what I'm doing subconsciously already. But when you said it, I realized that that should be my strategy moving forward. I don't want to work with someone who I wouldn't share a meal with.
Right.
So follow up after you have the person on your podcast, comment some of their posts because you like, and you don't need to make yourself do this. If you like the person, you will do it. Right. So that's a great way to connect. And I think the connection that podcaster and the podcast guest share, it never fades into oblivion. It always stays. We during this, it's strange and weird, but during this hour you somehow form an interesting connection. That is very valuable.
Right. And I mean, we're at, over 1,000 podcasts and it's not monetized for the Business Power Hour. Just, for whatever reason, I've just never really done that. So people ask me, what do I get out of it? I get to talk to cool people. That's it, and more importantly, and I learn from them. Every single guest I learn from, and it's funny. I mean, your podcast is very specifically targeted. Mine is a much more broad business podcast. And so I have, quite a variety of people on. And every once in a while I'll think, okay, we're going to be talking about whatever again, but that's all right. And I still find something, even if it's just that they're reinforcing something that I already knew. But it really is, to me, it's, we're sitting here, I've got my cup of coffee, you had your beverage, and we're sitting here just having a conversation. And that's really why I do this, is we do that. Now there's a podcast that I really want to go on, and I interview these guys one time. They only do it after 5 p.m., whatever time they are, because they have an adult beverage, they have scotch, they have whatever. And I'm thinking, yeah, I could get through about 5 minutes and then I'd just be stupid. But it's all about finding your niche. And I think that's one of the harder things for people to do, especially if they're thinking about starting a podcast, is who is it for? When I originally launched this podcast way back in, I think 2010, we called it The Socialite. And I had these cute graphics, right? Where I had, I was all fancy, and I never do fancy. So that was what was fun about this. But it was about social media. I mean, this was, long enough ago that was when Facebook was really just launching business pages. People were finally figuring out that they could do more on LinkedIn than just put their resume, all of these things. And so I interviewed people about social media and how they were using it for business. But there's only so many that you could do, right? And so that was when we decided to change the focus to business topics. And I'm still pretty specific as to who I want to talk to and who I don't. But it really is, it comes back to what you were saying about what you're doing. You have to have a passion for it. I love talking to my guests, and I really don't care what the subject is. I just love talking to them and learning from them.
Cool. Yeah, same here. I think that's why we find common language so effortlessly, because we both are driven by just the sheer desire to know people and to exchange good vibes.
Right. Well, and I'll be honest. I mean, you clearly, that the amount of learning that you do, listening to other people's podcasts, reading people's books to better yourself is absolutely astounding.
Oh, thank you.
And I know that some of that you mentioned, that's partially, for, to better your language. And, I tell people, English is my only language, and I don't even get that down very good. And, I speak a little smattering of some other, but English is, but, and I think that's something that many people need to be thinking about, is how can we be bettering ourselves? Watching people's, other podcasts, listening to them, reading books, and the continual learning, I think, is what is so important for anybody who is in business, whether they're an employee or whether they're the company founder. It's just so important to always have that continual learning, and then toss in fun stuff too, right? But I'm going to learn to crochet. Actually used to crochet when I was a wee little kid, because I'm thinking, this could be something fun to do, right? But it's also a challenge to your brain, your dexterity, all sorts of things. So,
great word, by the way, talking about English really well. It's a sharp word, dexterity. Wow.
I know I have dexterity. Well, and it's funny because I'm old enough to be your mother, and I'm getting arthritis in my hands, and so part of that is I'm thinking, okay, that can help with that, is to be moving my fingers and doing things. But it's about this continual learning. So we've only got about 5 minutes left. Oh my gosh. We just have to, we have this. This is why I set a timer, right? Because otherwise we'd be going, you'd miss dinner, I'd miss lunch. But tell us, what is kind of your philosophy in life? What is next for you? That was two totally different questions.
No, that I can work with that. I think my next chapter is to be written. One of the things that I want to do is write a book at some point in my life. I just had John Golden on my podcast yesterday, and he wrote 2 books already. And he said, Sergey, if you want to write a book, write a book. You see, and he also advised me to start a podcast, but not a podcast, but a blog. But I already been running my blog for 7 years. So he says if you do have like blog articles, you might as well expand them to an entire book, or you have
okay. So use those blog posts as chapters.
So running, but that's. Yeah, but the next stage is just to enjoy the moment. We don't know how much is left. And I'm all about enjoying the moment, but not from hedonistic standpoint, but from a standpoint of depth. And be grateful for people, for business partners, things that you can learn from. Be thankful for enemies, and you be thankful for all of that, because that makes us unique. And I think my next stage is to influence more people or inspire more people by coming on more podcasts, talking about my story, talking about how I overcame. I had drug addiction at one point in my life, how I overcame war. God, let us end this whole thing. I hope it's all gonna end soon. And I have a lot of stuff that I think that it could make me a good role model for the kids. So I think, just enjoy the life as it is. Do things that you truly love. Don't make yourself do something that other people impose on you. And that's just my motive. I can end by saying the quote. I like the quote by Pablo Picasso, one of my favorite quotes. It says, "The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to share the gift with others."
Oh my gosh. My gosh. Well, yeah, I mean, this really has been absolutely wonderful. But, somebody is saying, okay, I've got this podcast. I don't know what to do with it. I need help. How do they find you, and what are the services that you provide?
So our services is a video production of podcasts specifically, in addition to video podcasts. We do video clips that promote your podcast. LinkedIn is growing like crazy right now, so we're specialized in doing these clips, and we also publish them on LinkedIn, and we get a huge number of reposts, shares, so we know how to promote your podcast on LinkedIn. And we are super excited to work with business podcasts, produce video for them, and offer publication services. My company is called Beverly Productions. Beverly Production, singular. If you look up Beverly Production on LinkedIn, you will find us. And I think Deb will also leave the links in somewhere.
Yep, we'll have the links. Right? Yep. I'm glad you said singular, because I had plural in my show notes. So I just changed that. And we also, because you mentioned LinkedIn, we will have the link to your profile on LinkedIn. So people can connect with you. Sergey, okay, when you write your book, which should be sooner rather than later, right? We will have you on the podcast again to talk about that. And we might have you on between now and then also, because your insight is just absolutely wonderful. But until then, do you have any final thoughts? And I may pull the Pablo Picasso out again, but do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
I think whatever happens in your life, and I can talk on this matter. Believe me, I'm qualified enough, because I've overcame some difficulties, and right now we're in a state of war. Whatever happens in your life externally, some things that you cannot control, don't let them guide you, or don't let them influence you and take wrong decisions. Have the willpower to stand on your own. Have the willpower to do something that you feel like yours, even though people might say that, hey, this is stupidity, or you're pathetic. cherish your dream. Dream a lot, dream big, cherish your dream, protect your dream, and go for it. Sky's the limit.
Oh my gosh. I'm Deb Creer. I've been having so much fun talking with Sergey Leshchenko. I can't wait until we do it again. But until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.